You'll be fine.
Pros.
Let's talk about things and stuff. Mostly things today. I'm going to specialize in most of the things today.
Today is a day for stuff and things. It's also a day for likes. Likes on our YouTube channel. Please, my family is hungry. Please like and subscribe and share.
All of the things. I'm going to start. I didn't even take as the thing. We're ready to go. We're ready to ask for, boom, what's happening? I want stuff to be fixed. I want stuff to be awesome. I want more stuff. I'm even going to start us off with a little bit of fireworks. You know.
I like fireworks. I'm all about this. This is great.
Let's just jump into the deep end. Are you ready? You want to start? Yeah. Let's start with CP changes from Chapter Approve, our wish list. We have no idea what they are, but what do you think they should be?
Something's coming.
Yes, we knew that we're getting less, and we know we're getting more per turn. Yeah. Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? And what do we want to see? Nerds.
All right. So here's what I want to see, Brad.
Hit me.
I want to see CP changing to you gain CP more from like doing things in game, where like you know how like two of the missions have hold X, or like you have to hold your home objective, or you have to have your warlord alive to like get CP. I kind of would like to see gaining CP be that you gain more CP a turn. Like, what if literally every single mission has, if your warlord is alive, gain a CP?
I like that.
And then you get one at the beginning of the battle round, and then like you gain one command point if you have a unit wholly outside of your deployment zone. That's it. You can
some
gain,
of those are harder than others, yeah. I mean,
some of those are harder than others, but like you gain one passive, and then you gain one for having your warlord alive. You gain one for having a unit outside your deployment zone.
I want to start with that detachments are just detachments. I don't love the fact that Vanguards and Outriders and stuff like that can't get the refund from your warlord in them. Detachments are just kind of detachments. Some armies have better troops than others, you know what I mean? But attachment's attachment. Yeah. Just make it so that I get those all either don't cost anything, or give us one detachment, period. That's just one detachment is free. Nerf Hail Doom.
You want one detachment free so you can take a freaking like Eldari Outrider and just not even have to take troops.
Yeah. But I want that to be with everybody, though. If you're going to tell me that we don't have like a set thing that we have to take, yeah. I come from the land of one force org chart for the first 15 years of playing 40K.
I remember that.
So I'm fine with that, too. If you're going to have me take a million different types of them, well, just make them just not cost shit. You know what I mean? If you cast something from the Beyond the First, Brad looks like he's hungover. Super chat from Bam. I unfortunately I'm not hungover. I just do not feel super great today, guys, and I apologize. I'm also allergic to outside because whatever my home planet is, I'm not allergic to that. But clearly, this one that I got teleported to, I am allergic to that.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, I don't drink it in my home. I only drink when I come to see you guys. So. I am a tea. So I wish so much.
So kind of what I want to see for like detachments, I actually just want the battalion to gain like a fast attack and a heavy support. I just want them to have 4 in each.
A lot of those, yes, because I think that you should either get that, or if you're going to make me take something like a battalion or brigade, give me some other sort of bonus for it, exactly like that. You know what I mean? I just don't think that there's a reason for me to take those right now. Maybe I get different CP, you know what I mean? Maybe you do get a slightly different, more CP at that point in time. So there's a big deal with just that. If you want to make me take that one. I don't know if the CP is the way to go on that one, especially if we're going to regen them faster. Because right now, if we just got more CP, we started with less and got more a turn. I feel that it's just easier to just burn CP. You can't do like these one-turn craziness things, but as somebody that barely ever takes any upgrades, I could easily be just doing tons of everything if I was getting extra CP a turn.
Yeah, of course. So like, there's also the possibility of just like starting with less command points, because they've said that we're going to start with roughly half as many command points as before, with no indication of what they think we're at right now and where we're going to go to. So like, how do you kind of want to see the starting CP changed?
Starting CP changed. It depends on what their game is. It's a hard question on that, because I want people to be able to use, but I also think that the way we use stratagems right now is broken. And I've pushed for a long time for either once a game or per unit. I think that the data sheet should have stratagems themselves. You know what I mean? So yeah. I think that we need a revamp of stratagems before I can tell you how I feel about the CP. Because however many CP I start with and however many CP I get a turn, I'm going to spend the same. We already talked about this. I'm going to use the same stratagems over and over again, and I'm going to point them out so that I can do that every single turn.
I get that, and like we had this conversation last week, so I don't want to just repeat it. You know, although not that I mind disagreeing with you twice in a row, I'll do it every single week. But let's say that in the context of they're not FAQing any of the books, our stratagems and our codexes are staying the same.
Sure.
How do you want them to change command points? This chapter approved.
Well, see, it's hard though, because you have to guess how much you're starting with. Certain armies use a huge amount of CP in their setup, in buffing everybody up to make them very viable right now. And certain armies just don't. I mean, I literally take one relic, a relic, and the default warlord trait for me. You know what I mean? And what I do, because I want to spend more CP, and I can get away with that in a lot of the armies I play with. But other armies you need to make. So you're telling me Chaos right now can't start with any CP? I mean, their army literally revolves around all the upgrades.
Yeah, right.
So it's hard for me to say that, because I can skew to what I've been playing, and it's no big deal. Like, oh, I could start with 6, I could start with 3, I could start with whatever, and other armies just functionally can't do anything. You know what I mean? If they're not doing that, some of the melee marine armies really, really want their pre-game CP usage, so they use most of it there, to tell you the truth. So it's hard, man. It's hard on what you're going to do there, because how you make your armies a big deal. So going into that, how many CP do you want? I don't. It depends on how also you do your detachments. If you make all the detachments cost the same, or at least one, and say they're all free for at least one, then cutting it isn't as harsh if I could generate more per turn.
Yeah.
But I think you can't go any... Go ahead.
I honestly kind of just want to see them go, so, like, keep the detachments mostly the same. Maybe add, like, an extra slot or two to battalions so that it's a little easier to run one detachment. Because I want people to run... I want most lists to be like, yep, this is my battalion, and, you know, and have an occasional patrol and something. I hate seeing lists where they're like, yeah, I don't have good troops, so my orc list is a vanguard and 2 outriders because that's what I need to make my army work. And I'm like, that is the stupidest thing, and I don't want that.
Yes, all of the yes of that.
So, like, I kind of want to see them literally just take that 12, I kind of want to just see them take like the 12 starting to 8 starting, and then you can gain a little bit more per turn than you could before, so you end up with maybe 1 or 2 CP more than before across the game, but you can't just be like, turn 1, we're spending 7 CP, and that's really all I want to avoid, is those, you know, those Thousand Suns players that are like, oh yeah, well, it's turn 1, let me see how many stratagems I could throw down at once.
Stop making relics and upgrades CP dependent and just make them cost points.
I would be down for that purely because it would make, go back to making them cost points, because I think they used to. It would also help a ton with the fact that some relics and warlord traits are just not even, and the cute useful ones have no reason to exist when there is a better one.
100%. You're not going to spend a CP on random utility thing when you could just use the big beaten one. So there's a big deal on that. So I would rather see that come into play anyways. And I don't want to go because I raged on this so much last week, but I just, stratagems should be either baked into data sheets or once a game. You can't tell me that it's great for the game that I have 60 stratagems and I use 3. You know what I mean? It's just silly. So that starting CP, I don't know if I care as much as I care about them fixing how we do stratagems, period. So
yeah, I know you want them to just, fix things, but I think for this that sounds like an addition change. If they're revamping stratagems, that
sure,
to me that sounds like that if that happens, that would have to come in an addition change. I don't think that's something we can pop into a chapter approved, or I don't think that's something we should, frankly.
True. I mean, I give you that, but it's just such an inherent thing that's been wrong for a while. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I mean, some of the suggestions that I've seen for like how to solve that is making stratagems go up in cost every time you use them. Like, just, all right, Veterans of the Long War, it's 1 CP. Okay, second time you use it, it's 2 CP. Third time you use it, it's still 2 CP. Fourth time you use it, that's 3 CP now. Like, stop using +1 to wound.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, all of these things are something that you can do with that.
Yeah, and it's a much more elegant solution in my mind than making the 2 good strats, like the Custodes ones, go to, you can only use this once. I hate that. I hate strats that are once a game, but also it makes Custodes players use more stratagems. So is that a bad thing? I don't love it, but it's not necessarily a bad thing if it actually gets the variety that we wanted.
Yeah, I agree that it's a fix that probably is an addition fix on that. It's just, I felt like we had made the same complaints in 8th and then in 9th, and we just didn't change anything about it. And it's just so much easier to just do data sheet abilities, because then you can actually have actual data sheets. You know what I mean? You could print them out. You could show your opponent. You could have, I don't know, the app like it does in AOS, where you can just show your opponent everything that you can do. It's just easier. You know what I mean? So I'm just looking for ease of play, ease of use as we move forward with it. So let's go to something that I'll be a little bit controversial on.
Ooh, come at me.
It's one you said today, and I was scared about even talking about it, but rules mishaps. How to deal with them, what to do with them, what we should be doing with them. And I think it's unbelievably hard to talk about this, tell you the truth.
This is a difficult one to discuss.
Because it stems from intent. We will be talking about that. Spoilers also, but it's all about what you're trying to do, because to be fair, there's too many rules, man. There's so many rules and rules interactions right now. You're going to get something wrong, period. I just accept it, move on with your life. You know what I mean? It's just, there's so many ways you could rule things. I mean, even everybody that does it day to day is going to have hard times on it, but you have to be, what is the person trying to do? You know what I mean? And most of the time I try to err into, sure, whatever, you know what I mean? We find it out. One of the big things is just backing it up is ask, man. Ask. Let's just, if John and I are playing right now and he's like, I'm not 100% sure that's how it works. Well, let's pump the brakes right now. Let's look it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And,
so I kind of want to talk about this a little bit, because the first step is trying to avoid rules mishaps. This is both on you and your opponent, as always. If you're not confident in something, like if you've got an army that maybe you don't play often, you're new to, have that book open, like tell your opponent, like, hey, I'm new to the army, let me know if you got any questions. Have that book open on the table at all times, so you can always quickly look things up if you've got a question. Because like some stuff doesn't come up in advance. But then I think the biggest one is catching rules mistakes that your opponent makes after the fact is where this becomes the most awkward of a point. So I was at an RTT this last weekend, and I won't name drop anyone, but a friend of mine was talking to me, and this is like the lunch round. I won my game, he lost his. We're just hanging out. He's a buddy I haven't talked to in a while, and he's like, hey man, I want to ask you something about tyranids, like that fallback and shoot they've got. And I'm like, he's like, I just don't see people use that very often. Like like, why don't you ever use that? I'm like, what are you talking about? He's
Because,
like, oh, he used the Hive Tyrant imperative to fall back and shoot his whole army after I tagged him with my Harlequins. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't do that because it's not legal. It's fall back and charge, not shoot. And he's like, man, like, it sounded weird when he said it, but like, I just kind of went with it because he sounded sure. And I'm like, oh, my friend. Because he literally was asking, he's like, yeah, like all like the guys that I play with, like I play against Tyranids like 4 or 5 times, and none of them have used fall back and shoot on me. And I'm like, it's an awkward thing because you don't want to like ever go up to an opponent and be like, hey, are you lying to me? Are you getting your rules wrong? But there is a very real point where it's okay to ask opponents to show you something or to double check. I do it all the time. Half the time I'm wrong. Like if it's just a quick check and you're like, hey, I remember differently, or my buddy plays it a different way. Do you mind if we take a look? It's a very reasonable thing to ask. I always phrase it as like, look, honestly, like I've played against this army before and they did it differently. They might have been wrong, you might be wrong. It doesn't really matter, but like let's just take a peek real quick, make sure that we're on the same page, and then keep playing the game.
100%.
And it's a very you can bring it up naturally, but a lot of people are adverse to it. They don't want to stop the game and ask their opponent if they have a rule wrong. Because you don't want to be that guy and like say, hey man, is your rule right? And they're like, here's the book, it totally is. And you're like, oh wow, I feel like a jerk. No one wants to be that guy, but it's a lot better to just politely ask a question than to find out on a lunch break that a guy shot you with 3 units that weren't eligible to shoot. And it's like, oh well, we already submitted scores and he's on his way to pick up Chick-fil-A. Like, what do I do now?
right. One, try to prevent it. You know what I mean? Look it up.
Yeah.
Look it up, look it up, look it up. Take that time. But what do you do after you find out that someone's done this a bunch of times in a game, in previous games?
Like, oh, if someone
That was the question that you asked me today. We were talking about getting ready for today. And the question is if you get something hugely wrong every single game, and then we find out later, or in the middle of the tournament, or after 5 games or whatever else, what do you do then? Because you can't really go back. You either DQ, you just tell them not to do it anymore.
So there's two sides of it. There's what do you do if you got something wrong, and what do you do if your opponent got something wrong? I'm always going to call on people to like, hey, this is a game, but go talk to like the TO. So when in doubt, tag the TO into any conversation you're having if you've discovered that a rule was played incorrectly and it's been a little bit. Like if I'm like, hey, you were -1 to hit, and they're like, oh, sorry, like I just rolled without it. You can just go back and re-roll the thing if it's like in the same shooting phase, But if you're like, hey, you can't fall back and shoot, which you did on turn 2, and we're like scoring out the bottom of 5 right now, that's a little harder to get around to. Me personally, if I make a mistake, which it doesn't happen often, but it does happen, I'm usually going to err on the side of my opponent. If it's like if it's a close game, then I'll go like talk to them, and I'll be like, hey, I think I messed this up or whatever, or the game's in progress. If it's after the fact and we think it changed the game, you can go forward and forfeit. Frankly, that's the most extreme result. It's not something you have to do every time. I've done that before. I played a tournament last year with a 2002 point list, and we caught it like during game 3 that I was 2 points over, and I just dropped from the tournament. Unfortunately, I just said, hey, I'm going to forfeit my game 3 and I'll bounce out. That's the most extreme reaction.
Yeah, I just don't like. I was just say I don't like drops and DQs though. It's just
I don't like that.
You just want to basically get it fixed for later. That is if somebody's not trying to. Obviously, the problem is his intent. And it's hard to do intent on that because is someone just messing a rule up, or were they trying to use that after they found out, kind of thing. So that's a different.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the big thing is to say that there's never going to be a single perfect fix, because you can't put every single person who plays this game into one type. I think the biggest thing you can do is go talk to your opponent and inject that human element. Like it's one thing when you're like, you find out like on, a couple days after an event, your buddy's like, hey, I think your opponent got a rule wrong, or you're talking shop and you're like, man, this guy fell back and shot. And then like later in the week, you find out he can't do that. Then you get a little bit mad because the person's not there in front of you. But if you go up to someone and say, hey man, I think I made a rules mistake, let's talk about it, like let's see what could have happened, or just at least go tell them and apologize and make it, make a human connection, and talk to the judge. Like if you found out you played a rule wrong and you won 97-13, probably not going to go change the score. But if you like found out you did something wrong and you won by 5 points, you can go ask to change the score. Go talk to a judge. But just I say always play to the human element, which is go tell your opponent, go talk to them, and go talk to a judge as well and get their input. It's never going to be there's always one correct answer.
I'll give you 100% on that. It's just, it's very tough. That's why I said I was like, I was so shaky about even putting this in, but I said, screw it.
It's a difficult thing, But like,
I think
prioritizing everyone's enjoyment and just acknowledging the fact that you're always playing against another person is the best way to approach it.
You know what? I think that trying to catch these things beforehand, and I know not everybody knows everybody's codes, but like trying to catch them is the best way, obviously. And you know what? I'm going to segue this into one of the things that's near and dear to me. And that is playing by intent.
Playing by intent. Put it on me.
Here's my deal with playing by intent. I think that, first off, you have a social contract to give your opponent a decent game, period. Yeah. So start with that.
To make the effort.
100%. And I think
some people don't want to have an enjoyable game, I swear. But you got to make the effort.
I feel like I can force most people into having a good time with me, because I'm going to try to explain to you everything I'm doing, how to do it. I'm not going to try to gotcha you, anything else. I mean, I go a little bit farther than a lot of people do, because I don't want to win based on you forgetting something or something like that, because especially if it's something obvious, you know what I mean? You set up a charge, you didn't cast a psychic, you obviously were going to move right here to your objective. I'm a huge fan of, for me personally, and no one has to do this. This is just how I do it. And that this isn't just playing by intent. This is me kind of getting takebacks on that. But when I'm playing, I'm going to say what I'm doing. I'm going to get you involved in what I'm doing, because if I'm playing you right now, I'm going to go, John, what I'm trying to do is we measure your model out, and I want to stay outside of you being able to shoot me behind this wall. Do you agree that this can happen? I'm not going to say just, hey, I'm not being seen by this unit. No, you have to have a conversation about it, where you come out and you go, do you agree that you can't see me from here? And then, no, yes, whatever, we'll adjust it accordingly if I have to, you know what I mean? But having that running conversation means that I feel like I can stamp out feels bads, gotchas, you know what I mean? Things of that nature. And doing that over and over and over again, it also means that I feel like the person that's playing better, you feel like you got a real win, either side, you know what I mean? If I win, my opponent wins, they feel like they win. We didn't just shenanigans something in there. So I think it's a huge deal, and I hate when I don't see it. You know what I mean? When I don't see the intent. When someone's trying to shoot a hand, when someone's trying to, oh, you forgot to do this, I didn't say anything about it. Like, for instance, at the WTC, you literally are in charge of your opponent's reserves. Like, it's on you as well as them. You can get a card. Like, if you just try to go, they forgot to bring their stuff in on 3, it's now destroyed, you actually get yellow carded for that. So, yeah, they go pretty hardcore, because they don't want people to gamesmanship in their games. So, playing by intent isn't playing on easy mode, doing everything else. I think it's actually playing both players. Yeah, I think both players are playing on hard mode. And the thing is I don't want anybody leaving my game and you feel bad. Either I don't want to leave the game feeling bad. I don't want to feel the game. I was obviously trying to block out, but like my model got flipped over, the terrain got bumped. Maybe my wine bottle smashed the piece of terrain. But models get moved. You know what I mean? Like the carpets. The mats sometimes are basically on that stupid lip between two tables put together.
Oh, I've caught a sleeve on like the spire of a ruin and just like moved the entire thing 2 inches before.
Right.
Or like whenever I have like a lanyard on, you're at a convention and they give you a lanyard.
That's why I don't wear them.
Game 1, you wear it, and then you lean over the table, you kill 7 intercessors by just knocking them over, and you're like, okay, the lanyard goes on the army tray now.
Exactly.
Like every time.
Never.
You never wear it on game 2, but game 1, I see it happen every time.
But my thing is on that is like, I don't want to win. You're like, oh, it looks like you didn't block out anymore because your model got hit. You know what I mean? Or you knocked something over. I don't want to win by that, because when you go to the restaurant, the pub, the whatever, the fun is the most fun. I'll just stop making words up. The most fun things are, oh, damn it, I was playing John. He made like 2 11-inch charges and he's rolled he made all his saves. That's the fun of it. Screw you. You owe me a drink. Let's do this. You know what I mean? Like, that's the games I want to talk about. I don't want to talk about the fact when I go, remember the time when John hit a model and no longer blocked out his backfield and I scammed him? You're like, oh,
yeah. Oh yeah, seriously. Like,
yeah, that doesn't sound good. You know what? I love that comment, Hunter. I literally believe this. I'm going to read it real quick because this is literally how I feel about that.
This is how it should be.
Hunter goes, when I play, I assume you will do everything that you can do, bring in reserves, psychic phase, etc. And my job is to do mine better and win. Exactly. That's how I feel so hard about the game is I don't want to beat you at your worst. I want to beat you at your best. You know, and I don't want to win on nonsense moves. So let's talk through. Take your time. Also, when you're playing by intent, things happen. To give your opponent and yourself the best game, if something terrible happens to you, you roll only ones, you know what I mean? Your opponent only rolls 6s for a phase. Literally take a second. Go get yourself a drink. Chill out for a minute. Because even though it's a hobby, it's a game, it's everything else, you find yourself getting buttered. Everybody has. Everybody's been on tilt.
100%.
So
I get salty when Eldar make their saves.
Yeah.
You ever shoot Karandris when he has no command points or fate dice, and you shoot him with an entire night, and he just like lives, and you're like, you didn't feel safe.
It's just, but it's important that you don't give your opponent a bad game because of dice. He didn't do anything about dice. The dice aren't their fault. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unless the dice are their fault. And that goes back to the cheating thing, and then that's a different thing too. And we'll get more people in. We'll have more everything. By playing by intent, I really feel that you'll make your game. You'll win more often too, because you're talking through it. But it's about having that conversation, man. I just feel that I'm a big fan. I've had people say that I give too many takebacks or I play like this, or I let things go, but I don't think it's enough. I don't think you have to give 100 takebacks, but I think you do have to have a conversation with your opponent. I don't know what that means, but my brain just blew up on one of the comments, but you have to, you can force a good game on most people. There's always that guy that's like, I hate fun. And so, but most of the time, even at high level, you watch a lot of the high level streams, man. I'm not saying everyone's perfect, but you go through those games and a lot of times you see a lot of great games. I'm terrified of losing a game early and having to play it more mid-table, because mid-table, it gives me more opportunities to have people fight over things, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah, that doesn't have to be a rule. Like there are plenty of people in mid-tables who will, do the same thing, play by intent, who want to have a good time.
100%.
But it's just, I honestly think if you literally just go into a game and say, hey, we're both trying to have fun, we're both humans, let's have a good game and see who honestly wins. If that's the mindset you have, you're gonna have a good time more often than not. You like and it's no fun to lose that way, and it's no fun to win that day. And it is toys on the table.
100%, man.
Just bring it up in advance, and so many things are solved by talking about it in advance. Like no one wants to be like checking line of sight and like finding out their units getting shot during their opponent's shooting phase. Just talk it out in your movement phase. Like it's so easy to and have a conversation before the game about it. Like that's always what I do. Is everything is easier in advance. Just
talk about how you're expecting everything else. Like Bam made a good comment on that. He goes, I think the intent needs to be defined and spoken. And you have to, it's a conversation. You have to you're not telling your opponent, you're asking your opponent, you're asking if they agree with you on things. And you have to involve them. You can't just state things. Then they're like, well, I just don't believe you, or I don't agree with you. Well, get to the point where we agree, we disagree. Where do I have to move so we're both fine? You know what I mean? So it's a big deal on that.
Yeah. So somewhere where this comes up big, and to kind of give some examples, is like if playing by intent the right way is I don't want my Redemptor to get shot by a Caladius. So I put my Redemptor behind a wall, and then I ask Brad, who's my opponent Custodes player, hey, how fast does that Caladius move? Okay, it moves 14 inches. Okay, so I'm just going to put a dice at 14 inches away from the Caladius. Okay, so if I'm behind the wall, it looks like I can't see the dice, so the Caladius can't shoot me. and then you move on, and in Brad's turn, the Caladius does not shoot my Redemptor. That's good playing by intent. Bad playing by intent is just putting a Redemptor behind the wall, not asking Brad any questions, not mentioning something, and when Brad drives the Caladius up and is like, "Oh, I can see your plasma gun, I'm going to shoot you," you're like, "Oh, well, I didn't want to get seen." That's kind of bad playing by intent.
Well, it's super bad playing by intent at that point in time, because the opponent also just, like, does he have to redo his movement phase because he was thinking that he was doing a certain thing? So you have to have a conversation.
Like
talk. Just talk, man. I mean, clearly I'm willing to talk. So I'm not willing to ever shut the hell up, but I am willing to talk. So
Bam brings up some great points in the chat. Yeah, I've had people try to play by intent things that weren't physically possible. When people try to, like,
it's why it's a conversation.
When people play by intent, usually when they're like, "Oh, I'm going to screen out your back, like screen out so that your Hive Tyrant can land," if they just move a model back there. To me, that's not, I now can't deep strike a Flyrant because you said so. It's, I'm going to grab a 60mm base, put it on the table, and make sure your model is less than 9 inches away from it so that I can't land there.
Yeah,
go make sure it's right. That's not
exactly.
It's done right.
And that's why you don't just state things. You ask questions with the opponent because you probably can do it. But let's just find out if I can.
Make sure it's possible. Like as soon as I know it's possible, I'm not going to be finicky about a 1/4 inch.
Right.
I'm going to make sure it's possible first. Right. Once I've made sure it's possible, now it doesn't matter.
If I say I'm going to take this Dark Eldar Raider and I want to hide behind this one tree, you're like, "Wow, I'm pretty sure I can still see you." Yeah, exactly. I will have the birds and the bees talk for sure.
Brad, I'm too young for this.
But I'm very passionate about that, and I think people think that it's a different thing than it is most of the time.
I think so. Like, playing by intent is not like a magical catch-all of, like, I don't have to do it right. I can just say that I wanted to. You got to say you want to before you do it so that we know. You can't say, after I've moved to shoot, you're like, "Oh, I didn't want to get shot." Like, what? Like, well, okay. Like, we should have talked about this earlier then, Yeah,
well, that's again why. Like just talk to your opponent. I mean, it's a social game, man. Again, you are responsible for giving your opponent at least an okay game. You're striving for an awesome game, but you owe your opponent an okay game, for sure.
Yeah. 100%. All right, Brad, what's next? What's on the docket? I can think of at least one thing we still got to talk about.
I know. I don't even want to talk about it.
No?
You know what? Can I go into greater balance instead?
Oh, I mean, I feel like we got to address the title of the video.
Fine. If you're
I mean, we can go into greater balance afterwards, but, like, we have to mention the title of the video, Brad.
Fine. How to fix Tyranids and solve world peace.
How to fix Tyranids and the global crisis of Tyranids. Okay. So we've already had, like, an FAQ for Tyranids. They've already gotten a nerf. I think they got a relatively moderate nerf, but it was an impactful one.
They did two things that were just out of control broken, so they had to do. Encircling was just no. But GW should have got the spray bottle and told to get off the couch. Get off.
I'm honestly disappointed that they did not take the opportunity to change the Taraxi stratagem and the Orc stratagem, because I think that those are also broken. Just Tyranids were the biggest abuser of it. Oh, my Brad went silent.
No, I just was reading because I heard.
Oh, we've got a Brad back. Okay, good.
Yeah. We went with the, Corey goes, "I'm going to force drinks on Brad." And I was like, I don't know if anybody's ever forced drinks on me. Oh no, here's the drinks.
Oh no. So first question for you, Brad, and this is something I put in the chat. Do you think that Tyranids are fixed with points, or do we need to keep looking at the rules?
Points.
Points? Okay. I agree. I think Tyranids are a points problem, Eldar are a rules problem.
Encircling. Can we do Eldar at the same? We talked about this already.
Let's do Tyranids first, but I'm happy to go over Eldar as well.
Because I think that Eldar's laughably easy, because I think that Eldar are pointed appropriately, and you just pretty much. I'm saying you can always go with full efficiency as far as anything a huge problem. They still need 2 mechanical things: stop Ahar through jumping in the fight phase, Hawks bounce once a game. Okay, continue on with Tyranids. Tyranids.
I want Hail of Doom to be all consuming as well.
I could see that. That would just make me play Uthway again, which I want to do anyways. But, yeah. So, but with Tyranids, I think the problem is that everything is slightly too efficient for what it does. And I actually think that while Tyranids are clearly the number one army and they have a little too much stuff on the floor,
Mhm.
I think that Tyranids, and I'll get the tomatoes thrown at me because I thought the same thing with Custodes. I think that Tyranids are way closer to being balanced than you think they are right now.
Agreed. It would, from this point, I don't think it would take much to push them to balanced.
Yes, you need points changes on big monsters because things like harpies are insanity efficient. Synapse Harpy is crazy, does great work. Maliceptor's still probably too cheap. The Warriors could use a little bit of a nudge. And the thing is that you have to watch out, though, because what you want to do is grab a lot of units and give them a small tweak instead of hitting one or two things and making them unplayable. And GW that's why I always say dust lightly. Bring out just a little nerf bat. Don't General Grievous the nerf bats. You know what I mean?
Again, Darth Maul, just cut their points in half.
Yeah, well, we've seen it happen over and over again where we're like, hey, this army, this unit, this whatever is a little bit of a problem. And GW goes, no problem, guys. We'll just knock it into unplayable. What do you think about that? You're like, we could have talked. You're like, I feel like the nuclear option doesn't have to be your first go-to.
Yeah, have you played against a Malefic Lord in the last 5 years, Brad?
Oh, they don't exist now.
Exactly.
Also, have you seen the big chicken on the board?
Nope. Oh yeah, remember when Autos Rec Ares was like the best unit in the game, hands down, no questions asked?
Then he got doubled in points.
He's literally double.
Yeah. So for me, I think you have to look at the Tyranids, and to be fair, you have to put the army back on the ground. You go, okay, here's what we're thinking about doing, and this doesn't take that long. You're a company. Literally go, here's the points fixes we're looking at. Look at the army, the same army, and then look at the same army after the nerfs. How much less things are on the board right now? If it's too much, then fix it. You have to look, the site test is a real thing. You know what I mean? How many things are back into that army? If you do this giant thing and then all of a sudden Tyranids become this lower rate codex, and maybe they're still decent, you know what I mean? But you have to, I feel like we should nerf lightly and more often. And that's what Tyranids need is a dusting of points everywhere.
I actually, what I really want to see, this is a Tyranid player, I want to see a lot more granularity in Tyranid points. So the internet will crucify me for this. I want Raveners to stay the same points, but I want Rending Claws to be +2 points. And then I want Death Spitters to be +4 points. So that a model with Scything Talons and a no gun is not the same cost as Rending Claws and a Death Spitter. Because, of course, the Rending Claw and Death Spitter Ravener is amazing for 30 points. It's super good for 30 points. But I think 30 points for a Scything Talon Ravener with no gun would be perfectly fine. Really do.
I want to give Matt super chat. Thank you, Matt. Do you worry if GW does not take a heavier hand on the bugs? We might have a Drakari problem where they are just juiced for a year and a half. The problem was they did it
distinctly possible.
Yeah, but they did. GW did do a weird thing with the Drakari because of the fact that I felt that if they would have done lighter, more frequent nerfs, we would have got to where the Drakari are, which was a pretty balanced, very good army. The problem is that they took that weird sidestep into Thick City. So I think that the rest of the book was fixed at Thick City. It's just that Thick City happened. But if you kind of ignore Thick City, that codex actually worked after that round of nerfs and was very good and was probably very fair. So yes and no, because I don't want to happen is you to take an army and just smack it and make it unplayable.
I don't think that Tyranids will be quite as oppressive as Drakari were for the last year. However, they could be a similar army. I mean, look, I'm biased. I own more Tyranids than anything else. I want Tyranids to be good after this last balance patch. I don't want them to be what they are right now. So I don't mind if they go heavier than they did on any of the individual Drakari nerfs to get Tyranids where they need to be. But I don't want them to go nuclear. I don't want to see Maliceptors be 300 points, Hive Tyrants 350 points, and Warriors 50 points each. Like, well, oh, okay. Like, we can't go that hard.
Sorry, I'm just reading this quote. We need GW to start light touches and stop going full Will Smith on changes. Stop. Thank you. Thank you for making my day a little bit better. But yes, they go too hard too often. The problem is that you can go lighter if you go more often. You have to start touching things. We have we're going to do these every 3 months, but man, if you just went, it gave us a something every month kind of thing, even a small thing. We know that this one unit is a little bit too tuned up. You know what I mean? We had like things like, hey, encircling's a little bit of a problem. Hey, the Maliceptor with doing 4 castings, a little bit of a problem. Man, just give us hot fixes, even tiny hot fixes once a month. If something is causing a problem in the tournament scene, it's just so easy. Boom, make it a headline in War Community. Here's the addendum to the FAQ. Boom. Every one of us feels just a little bit better. We know that they're doing something about the game, and we don't have to have chats like this as much. Yeah, exactly. We have to have just more touches. I think that they underestimate the involvement and the ever-changing meta of the game. Because then we'll have things like 6 months to 9 months later where we have somebody coming in with a pod on Quixote jousting with windmills because let's nerf those Marines. Remember when the attack bikes were a problem? You're like 9 months ago? You're like...
Yeah. Outriders?
Yeah.
That Outrider points buff? Come on.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, that's what happens when you wait too long for things because the meta and new books pass you by. It's an ever-changing landscape. You have to be on top of it with your finger on the pulse at all times. And there's going to be mistakes, period. There's going to be things missed. But if we're doing constant updates and little updates, you're always going to be at least happier and a little bit healthier with the game. Michael Pitts, thank you, brother. I think Warriors need to go up and Gaunts go down. I cannot agree more on that.
I would in a heartbeat trade -1 on both type of Gaunts for +5 on Warriors. I would be happy with that. I don't think it would make the game make Tyranids more broken or anything. I just want to use something besides Warriors. I like Warriors. I want some Warriors. I don't want a lot of Warriors. I don't want a spam of Warriors. It's like taking 10 Shepherds and no sheep. Let's get some Gaunts in here and play Tyranids. Gaunts are already painted. They're ready to go. Let me put them on the table.
Gaunts got abused and some of the other stuff. I mean, let's be honest. The Leviathan list probably needs 200 points less crap on the board. But
yeah, I think you basically want to cut like a full Maliceptor out of that list. Yeah. That's about 170, so you have 200.
Right. But the thing is I don't want to go past that, though. That's my whole problem is that I know everybody's, like myself included, there's a reason that I played only NIDS in like my last 3 against NIDS in my last three tournaments. But there's also a point where, I never play NIDS again because we smash them. And I hate when we do that. I literally hate when we crush an army with NIDS.
So I've played against NIDS. I had four times in my last 3 tournaments, which is honestly not even a high number, all things considered. But then, like, the 12 tournaments before that, I played against Tyranids once.
Yeah, it's just crazy on that. Yeah. So, you know what? I'm gonna tie this into my next question on that. We're gonna continue to talk about the Tyranids, but I'd like to open it up because there's a lot of good questions also in the chat, which is what is needed for army balance, and is that even possible? Because I think we're always going to have a slight imbalance because the meta is a roller coaster of what's going on. We also have things that are just innately better than things against certain factions. You know what I mean? So the question is then, what can we do to maintain balance? And I mean, I feel that the obvious answer is frequent, very frequent looks at mechanics and points. We should just accept that we have to constantly be slightly adjusting points. I mean, if you're playing...
I think so. The digital points are a huge step forward for that. Add mechanics,
So...
Yeah. And I know people have been talking in the chat a lot that there's a group of Tyranid leaks going around this morning of like different points changes that are predicted. Um, I I have no idea if they're true or not. I think that those are perfectly reasonable changes to make. All of them are pretty easily justified by looking at current Tyranid lists. So I'm down for those changes to be real. We don't know if they're real, but one of the ones that's talked about is plus 50 on the Maliceptor. That's the only one I don't like. That's too many, in my opinion. But the Maliceptor was offensive.
But it's
Plus
not
50
as offensive now with the
yeah, plus 50 seems like what they should have done without changing rules. But now that they've changed rules, I think you can go plus 30.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big deal on that. Got the Baron with 4.99 in euros.
Thank you, Baron.
Do you think Night Books and maybe CSM could change the NID meta by filling a gatekeeper role? If so, what's the biggest issue in Chaos Knights versus NIDs?
100%.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Chaos Knights can mess up NIDs really bad.
I think the Imperial version might be worse because I think they're shooting slightly better than the Chaos Knights are.
It is definitely better. It's really hard for NIDs to do anything to Chaos Knights.
True.
I played against Tyranids this last weekend with Chaos Knights, and at a certain point, after like a couple turns of like ticky-tacky stuff, I powered up my Harbinger of Dread table and I shoved my army in the middle, and I'm like, hey, if you want to charge me, pass leadership check or have your charges. And these poor Carnifexes and Screamer Killer Carnifexes at like leadership 7 and leadership 6 at then a -1 just wasn't connecting. Just nothing was happening, and they bounced. And I was like, okay, well, you're dead now. And the morale shenanigans Chaos Knights can put out are really good against Tyranids, I think.
I can see that because most of it, their leaderships are actually low, but they're based on the fact that they're always in Synapse, so it usually never comes into play.
Yeah.
Books and data cards, the least usable items. Now games they are, guys. Man, I'm a huge paper codex guy because of the fact that I also read the fluff. So I do buy all the books because, well, I'm 1,000.
Yeah.
But yes, you have to have a digital version of all your stuff. And especially for people just getting into the game, we can't price people out. I won't even talk about models. We'll just talk about books and things of that nature. You have to have things accessible for all players, let alone new players, though, because no one wants to find out that the book they just bought means absolutely nothing. Yep. If you at least get a digital copy with it and it keeps updating that, then you at least feel you bought a value and you can be constantly updated on all these things. So it just is.
Yeah, that's just what it is. Yeah, no, seriously, I would love to see them go digital and update everything more regularly and like have more just frequent upgrades. Like I think they could I think every other month would be perfectly fine. I don't think every month is realistic, but I think every other month a small points update, totally fine.
Oh, dude, I need to read this because I as a person that abused the Inari thing and I hated the Eldar Codex got destroyed. Mano, it stinks when a datasheet gets whacked because one subfaction ruins it for the whole army, the Inari problem. Would you want adjustments to strats, traits, etc., or just stick to points? No, you have to figure out core mechanics. This is an argument I actually had for a long time when Inari was the issue, because they actually broke the Eldar Codex, and it was actually a Inari mechanic problem. And I literally got on my soapbox and went, I don't care what you're nerfing right now. I will soul burst with another unit. So until you wreck the whole codex,
yep.
I will keep just soul bursting with something else. I
will find the most efficient shooting unit and it will soul burst every turn.
Right.
It doesn't matter which unit that is. Someone's going to do it.
That's why it's very important to make that difference between something that I think is very easy. I think those are very easy to fix by points, but we'll look at it. We won't even look at it as a codex. We won't even look at it as past stuff. Let's do the Eldar right now, because I think that Eldar aren't fixable by points. I play Eldar. You know why you feel bad? Because you can't interact with certain.
I hate it so much. Yeah.
I mean, you've always hated elves, but I'm just saying, Hawks and Baharoth, you have to fix their mechanics to fix that. Mm-hmm. There's not a point thing that works it, because what your options are is point them out of usefulness or fix the mechanic. And a lot of times what happens is they point them out of being played and then they never fix the mechanic. You're just like, all of a sudden Baharoth's 200 and some points and the Hawks are 23 points apiece or something, where you're just not going to take them. You know what I mean? Because they don't have, when you could just fix the mechanic. You know what I mean? Fix the mechanic. And we both talked about different things that we thought they could do. But I mean, for mine, it was make Hogs bounce once a game. Make Baharov bounce only on shooting, not on both. And then all of a sudden you go, oh, okay, I don't need to change anything about these points. I just need to fix the mechanic. Tyranids, I feel the mechanic was already fixed. There might be more. We could go into more, but like mostly it was.
There's always more, but the two biggest ones were fixed.
Were fixed. And that's how you get into that. So I think that you can do that. You can look at whether, hey, is hail a problem? Maybe make it all encompassing. I like John's idea on that, because a lot of the other things aren't. I think that they're actually really fairly pointed for most all of them. It's just, if you see a mechanical problem, you have to look at the mechanical problem and stop making it so that you're pointing things out of playability. It's the same reason I think that we need light Tyranid nerfs, but a lot of them on whatever's the cost.
A lot of light nerfs, Harpy should go up 20 to 30 points, and then go ahead and make the Tyrannifex plus 10 while we're at it. Tyrannifexes aren't being seen at all, but I'm just letting you know, if they come in here and they make the Harpy garbage and they make Tyrannifex garbage and they hammer out Warriors, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put my Tyrannifex on the table, because they're almost there, and they are still really good. They could go up 10 points, and I would still take them.
Hard for me to say what's broken in Craft World. Also, looking at a couple of things, because it's my number one army. I love playing my Pioneers.
Yeah. Well, there's not actually that much that's broken in Eldar. Only Swooping Hawks and Baharoth and every single model with a Shuriken weapon. It's only 3 things.
No, it's not even the Shuriken weapons, because Shuriken weapons are nothing besides himself. It's hail on that. So you have 3 things.
All these Shuriken weapons. I never see anything besides Hail of Doom, Brad. It's the only thing in there.
Well, stop being Tyranids. I don't want to play that. The only reason I brought Hail of Doom now is Tyranids. I hate it. I literally hate it, because I have no utility.
Yeah, I'm not going to stop. You can nerf me. I'll be a Tyranid player still.
I love that. I love you had to throw that one in. Hey, John. Michael Pitts, if it's in a tournament, there's nothing I can do about it. But in regular games, I'm refusing to play against Tyranids or Eldar. Am I wrong for it? No, it's your fun. If you're not playing in a tournament game,
if you're not going to have a good time, you don't owe anyone your time.
You're playing with tiny soldiers, man. Like, in the end, have a good time. I don't care what it is.
Now, if it's your friends, please tell them in advance so they can bring their other army. But
I mean,
don't show up to the store, drive their meaty guy and be like, "Ooh, is that Tyranid in your box? Yeah, I'm gonna back out and drive home." No, don't do that.
I mean, I prefer playing a lot of narrative things, to be honest. So, and I also like play teams. It's just a better world.
Yep.
And the thing is that the reason I love things like Craft World, though, I think you can just shoot them off the board if they didn't bounce as much.
Yeah, that's why I love Craft World. You can just shoot them off the board.
Also, I do not like it. My T3 guys don't like being seen. Leave me alone. My Eldar battle cry of not in the face. But this is Sean Hale, do bullshit. It's true. It is a big thing. The thing is that I don't think most things have mechanical issues, and I think some of them are. If you get a feels bad, then you have to look at, is this feels bad from a mechanical issue, or is it from a points issue? And that's where you have to come from that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Mr. Bradley. You got one more thing for us, or is that the wisdom for the week?
I wanted to end on my playing by intent, but it segued so good, well.
It was just so smooth, Brad. I can't deny that to you.
It's a big deal on that. So I wanted to be the positive. You know what I will say? Through points changes and through everything else, don't let anyone tell you that you can't put a unit on the board, because it's not what's considered the best list right now. You're going to find the best variations of lists by playing whatever the hell you want and testing. You might have the worst idea ever, but you may take one nugget out of that. Don't let other people tell you what you can play.
Always good advice.
And with that, I'm going to Queenswave my way out of here.